So, my dear friends, greetings to each and every one of you. In this particular class, I would like to draw your attention to the subject that I am going to take towards the end of the first semester. You will have other classes before. And the title of this particular course is called Contemporary Philosophy, a special attention to existentialism. A special attention to existentialism. At the very outset, we need to clarify some of the basic concepts. What is the meaning of contemporary philosophy? Then, in the second part of my lecture, I would like to highlight what is existentialism and what are some of the salient features of existentialism. Contemporary philosophy. What is the meaning of the word contemporary? Normally, in daily life, we use this expression contemporary means someone who belongs to my times. In simple words, we say, for example, John was my contemporary, meaning to say that John and myself, we were from the same time, we studied in the same time, we belong to more or less the same age group. So, my times, that is the meaning or the general, usual meaning of the word contemporary. Now, when you use the word contemporary philosophy, is it a philosophy of today, my time? Or is it a philosophy of the people who wrote the philosophical thoughts during their times? Sometimes there could be a little confusion while using this expression, contemporary philosophy. Now, just to recall to mind, when studying the history of philosophy, we had the ancient philosophy. I'm talking about the ancient Western philosophy. There could also be, and there is certainly, ancient Indian philosophy. So, our attention today is not so much of Indian philosophy, of which you will certainly know in other lectures, but ancient Western philosophy, and therefore ancient Western philosophy refers to the philosophy of the Greek times. You have studied them last year, before last year. One or two names certainly you will remember, or you must remember while talking about ancient philosophy. At least you must remember the names of Plato and Aristotle, at least two names. So these belong to the ancient times, ancient Greek times, and they are celebrated philosophers, both Aristotle, Plato, and some of their contemporaries. Then you have the second period of the history of philosophy, what we call the medieval philosophy. Medieval philosophy is a philosophy which belongs to the medieval times, from 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th century. Once again, I'm sure you have studied the medieval philosophy, and if you don't remember anybody, you must remember one or two medieval philosophers' name and at least some of the key aspects of their philosophy. For example, we have the well-known, the most tallest Christian or Catholic philosopher, St. Thomas Aquinas, belongs to this group of medieval philosophers. Those who have studied, just recall to mind, note down, and think who are some of the other medieval philosophers and what are the principal elements of their philosophy. Then, thirdly, we have another important part of philosophy or segment of philosophy called the modern philosophy. Another significant philosophical moment in the history of philosophy. And here, the father of modern philosophy is called as Descartes. Descartes is supposed to be the father of modern philosophy. And from Descartes, many other philosophers follow. And in the modern times, we can see two trends of thought coming up, or two schools of thought being born in the modern times. One is called the rationalistic school, where the emphasis is given to the human reason, where all knowledge is inside of us. The other branch of thought or school of philosophy is called empiricism, where the emphasis is on experience. All knowledge comes from experience. Thus, we have modern philosophy. And after modern philosophy, the philosophy or the school of philosophy that comes after this is called as contemporary philosophy. So, philosophy which comes after the modern philosophy, in simple terms, is called contemporary philosophy. To make it a little more concrete, little more clear, philosophical schools which are born in the late 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, philosophical schools born in the late 19th century and in the beginning of the 20th century are called, or they are called as contemporary schools of philosophy or contemporary philosophy. So, just to make it very simple, so not to misunderstand, contemporary school is a school of philosophy wherein philosophers who brought new ideas in the late 19th century and in the beginning of the 20th century, and therefore that school is called as, or schools are called as, belonging to the contemporary times. Now, when we talk about contemporary philosophy, there are several schools which are born or which thrived during the contemporary times, meaning to say during the late 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century. I shall name a few of them. I am not going to teach all of them. You will have certainly classes on several schools of thought of the contemporary times. One contemporary school of thought which was born in the 19th century is called as Marxism. Karl Marx is the founder of this school. It's also called sometimes as philosophy of matter. Discusses the basic human situation from the point of view of economic and social structure and the best way to emancipate human person from the bondage of economic and social injustice. So, in other words, emphasis is given to human liberation from the social injustice, from economic freedom, justice, and equality to all people. Whether they have succeeded or not, you will have to study Marxism. I am sure that will be one of the topics this year you will cover. Another school of thought that was born in the contemporary times is called pragmatism. To approach or to consider praxis as the only way to emphasize, or in simple words, pragmatism is pragma, coming from the root word or coming from the meaning of the word praxis, means practical. So, according to this school of thought, everything becomes practical or useful provided it helps me. In other words, a philosophy which emphasizes what is truth. Truth is that which is useful to me, which is practical, which is helpful. So that's why the title of the school is Pragmatism. William James is one of the important philosophers or one of the important figures of pragmatic philosophy. I'm sure this will also come in another lecture or in another subject. Then we have another school of thought that was born in the 19th century. It's also a school of contemporary times, and it is called as logical positivism. Logical positivism. Some of the important figures of logical positivism are Bertrand Russell, Ludwig Wittgenstein, A.J. Ayer. They question or the issues concerning language, semantics, grammar, then also the question of science. So these are some of the issues they discuss. Once again, you will certainly have a few classes on or a few thoughts about logical positivism in another subject. Another very significant and important, school that was born in the late 19th century and which flourished enormously in the 20th century is called as phenomenology. The founder of phenomenology is none other than Edmund Husserl. And according to him, we can know the reality as it is. Phenomenology means phenomena, coming from the root word phenomena, that which appears. Logos is the science or study. So it is a study or science of things which appear. Now, appearance need not be only to the eyes, to the ears. Appearance can also be to my entire being, to my heart, to my mind. So all things which appear, I make an attempt to know it. And therefore, appearance is, it is knowing the reality. And according to the method proposed by Edmund Husserl, we can know the reality fully. We can know the reality in its essence. Once again, this particular school of thought will be studied at length in the second semester. So these are some of the important schools that were born. They came up in the contemporary times. But we are not going to study in this particular course these schools of thought, which I said will certainly come in other classes and other courses. Our attempt in this particular course is to study another very important, significant school that was born in the 19th century, which flourished enormously in the 20th century, is called as existentialism. Existentialism. Therefore, in this particular course, the title is Contemporary Philosophy, an introduction or an analysis of existentialism. So we will be talking in length about the school called existentialism and what are the salient features of existentialism, who are some of the key philosophers in existential school of thought, and what is the speciality of their philosophy, and how this philosophy has affected human life, and how this philosophy is even significant in our times. So this is the brief introduction to the concept called contemporary philosophy or schools of contemporary philosophy, and how we are going to enter into the depth of the study called existentialism.